Courage is like a muscle. If you exercise courage and you take a stand in a scary situation, the next time you're confronted, you'll be stronger and you'll be able to stand up against it. My guest knows what parents need today, and it's courage. Courage to stand up for their children and to take on their school boards. He started the organization called Courage is a Habit, love that, to give parents the tools that they need to fight the good fight because our kids are worth it. Stay with us. Welcome to the Moms for America podcast. Each week, we introduce you to special guests who share their personal stories and advice on how to build a strong foundation of faith, family, and freedom in their home, community, and country. Hi, moms. I'm Debbie Carolitis, your host, and this is the Moms for America podcast, a show inspiring, encouraging, and educating moms in their journey through motherhood. Well, right at the top of the show, we want to invite you to subscribe, like, share all that fun stuff that you do with our podcast with your mom friends. Also, if you have an idea or a topic for our podcast, would you please email me at podcast@momsforamerica.net. In fact, anyone that emails me with feedback, information, or suggested guests, I'm going to send you a special gift from the podcast. So please go ahead and stay in contact with us. I do appreciate it. I want to invite all of our moms that are listening to join our movement here at Moms for America. It's moms just like us uniting all across the country to fight for family, faith, freedom, and the Constitution. Our website is momsforamerica.us. Please go by there. Check us out. We've got a lot of great resources, information, programs, all kinds of stuff to help you, mama, raise your kids in this crazy culture. Well, on to today's show. Today's guest is Alvin Lui, a father with school-age children. Alvin started the organization Courage is a Habit, not because he wanted to start or not for profit, take on more jobs and more responsibility, but because of his own personal experience in the school district that he lived in. One was a blue state and the other one is a red state, but both of them have pretty serious issues. So he'll talk with us all about that today. Excited to have him, excited to have answers to the situations that we're facing with our kids. Welcome, Alvin, to the Moms for America podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's really, really wonderful to be here. You guys do such great work. So it's an honor to be here, Deb.
Thank you. Well, we're all in this fight, right? To protect our kids and to save America. And we want to have a future for our children.
Absolutely.
So you kind of come back. I've got a lot to chat with you about. And I love that I'm going to call you the answer man.
Okay.
You like that?
Yeah, I love
it. You've got
hey,
all
you
this.
know what? I get called a lot of things, and that's the best thing I've heard all week. So it's good.
Is that good?
That's
I'm going to call you the answer man.
Please do that. I'm gonna change my email signature to that. That's great.
You've got all the solutions for the moms that are fighting their school boards or trying to figure out what to do in their community. But before we get into that, you have a very interesting history, right? Your family comes from communist China all the way back to your great-grandfather. I think this is really interesting just to kind of start out this way because folks like you, families like you, understand this in such a more profound way than any of us that have had the honor and the privilege of being raised in America. Sure. Tell us a little bit about the family history. I know you have kids. I know your dad fighting on the fight, but tell us about this. Not everybody comes from communist China.
Right. My father, he never let us forget where we came from. So he always reminded us that if you can't make it in America, if you can't be successful in America and you're born here, you can't be successful anywhere. Because you have no language barrier, you have no culture barrier. So my parents did a really great job in reminding us where we came from, but also appreciating where we were born. And so that's a very important distinction. So you can remember where you came from, you can appreciate your culture, but also appreciate where you're born. So most people don't realize or remember that China wasn't always communist. That communism came to China. It wasn't that if you ask a lot of kids today, especially young people, they'll just think it's always been that way, but it's not. My great-grandfather, he was a fairly older man already when communism came. He owned 2 bakeries, and communism, just like what you're seeing today, it's dividing people. But in China, you couldn't divide by race because it's a monolith, right? But they divided by class. Other than that, the blueprint's the same. The rich are evil, things of that nature. My great-grandfather wasn't rich by any stretch. He's a small business owner. But when communism came, they started dragging people out that they thought were evil, and beating them. My great grandfather was one of those people. They would, take bats and batons to his legs and drag him out of his shop. And but what's interesting is that it wasn't soldiers that did it. It was college-age kids. They call it the Red Guard. So it's our version of BLM and Antifa, the transgender cult. So that's our version of the Red Guard.
It's just right? We just keep repackaging this stuff.
Same thing. Nothing that we're seeing today. They're not inventing anything new necessarily. They're just using different groups, but the blueprint's the same. So my great grandfather came to America. He landed in Hawaii, and by himself. And then that's how my family got here. That's how my father got here. He was a young man when he came, of course. And that's how myself and my siblings are born here in America. So we've seen this before.
So now I understand even more why courage is a habit, and that why really God's called you to this, because you came from a family that has a history of the importance of seeing what freedom, when you don't have freedom, when you don't have a constitution, you do have to fight for it, and you do have to be courageous.
Or you can't fight and you run.
Right.
And that's what, there's nothing to fight when you're in that situation once it gets to that point. And so for us here moving from California, we moved from California to Indiana in 2020 for largely the same reason, not as dramatic as my great grandfather, of course, but the way California was, we didn't want to raise a family there. We didn't want to raise kids there. Because
what were you seeing in California? I mean, we hear it is as terrible can be. Is it that bad? It is that bad, isn't it?
It is that bad. Worse than what you think.
It is.
So people that are outside California, when they read the headlines, they kind of laugh at it, and either they laugh at it or they can't believe it's that bad. So it's actually worse than what you would think when you live there. Because when you don't live in California, you don't feel the high taxes. You don't feel the burden of criminals, the revolving door of criminals, no matter where you live. In California, you can buy, a house can be 11 square feet and be close to $1 million or more. And you still have crime, this revolving door crime.
Homelessness, right?
Everything, right? All of it, right? And even if you live in a nice area where there isn't that, there's still the taxes and the regulations and you just can't escape it. And so it's a really terrible place to raise good kids.
So you're in California. How do you go from California to Indiana, which, by the way, I'm right close to you out here. So that's quite the change.
It is. And, we had looked at other states that we came down to 5 or 6 states that we felt was, a good place to raise family and things. But some of the states that were too close to California, we removed from our list because it was too close to California.
Check. Right.
We didn't want to, we're like, it was Arizona or something. We're like, okay. Or Texas. We're like, it's too close. And so there's a lot of reasons. You come to the Midwest.
You come to the Midwest, and we do have this. I love the Midwestern people because I think they're so friendly and
so great.
It's a great culture. But when you came to Indiana, what were your hopes and what did you find? I guess that's the question, huh?
Well, my hope was that it was largely unimpacted by a lot of the poison that destroyed California. And then I found that a lot of the seeds had already been planted here, but it's exactly like what happened in California. It started in the schools. So we just didn't know it. Of course, at the time, you don't have family, you don't have kids. You just don't pay attention. Most people don't. And most parents I work with, I would say great 90% of parents that I come across, they would tell me exactly where I was. And I know who the governor is. I know who the president is. But other than that, I couldn't tell you who the mayor was.
Sure.
Where my parents are still today, where I grew up, I still couldn't tell you who the mayor was or is, because we just don't,
I think people are paying more attention though now. I had a mom call, right? I had a mom call me yesterday and she goes, I couldn't have tell you what my school board, my township, my county board, my mayor, nothing. She goes, just so you know, in the last 6 months, I've been to see them all.
All of them. Yeah. And I was the same way. So when I got to Indiana, I recognized a lot of the seeds that were already planted, but just like Californians, people here in Indiana, and I would suspect in a lot of other states, don't believe it can happen to them. And so one of the funnier stories is, when I first got here, when I tell people I'm from California, but I'm not that kind of Californian, they would go, hey, just like what you said, literally you go, hey, I read this. Is that true? Is that a policy? Is that a law? And I would say, yes, it's true. And then they would laugh and go, I don't know how you create, how did even this happen? This is ridiculous. You guys are such idiots. And they go, how did you let that happen? And then my response was, well, you're getting a front row seat now. What are you doing about it? And they're like, what do you mean? It's not happening here. I go, It is.
It
You
is.
just don't feel it yet. It
Right.
is happening. It's the same thing. What are you doing about what's happening in your schools? It's not happening in
Right.
our schools. Here's this. Well, but that's not the same thing. Well, yeah, it didn't start off like that with us either. It's just
Mhm.
how it goes. It's a social contagion that just destroys the mental health of a child
Mhm.
while talking about how good mental health is, how they're helping mental health. And then they, insert this ideological brainwashing. And then
Right.
in a few years, they vote a certain way. And then you turn around and go, what happened? It's like the same thing. We said the
Right.
same thing. It wouldn't
Right.
happen here. It's not going to happen here. So
Right.
I
So
just
you
saw,
see it,
I
you
see the
saw it
same thing.
happening. You saw it, you see it, well, I'm in Illinois, so of course
Yeah.
it's happening here.
Yeah, for you, yeah.
But you would kind of think that in general, all of us would think, oh, Indiana, pretty conservative,
Yeah.
very actually a conservative state, conservative leadership.
Yeah.
So you saw this happening in your
Yeah.
state,
Right.
in the schools, in the culture, in the atmosphere.
Right.
And what did you see and what did you decide to do? I guess I want to get into what you're doing now.
Sure. So seeing, again, it started in the schools. In California, it started in the colleges, academia, and then it bled down to K through 12. Here, they just go right to K through 12. And so you see the social emotional learning, which I won't, cover too much of it because I know you got, a couple of experts on the show, but it's these programs like social emotional learning, which is 90% of school districts. It brings in all the critical race theory, critical pedagogy, cultural responsive teaching, the transgender cult, the gender, all that stuff under the guise of mental health. And that's what I saw here. So in a lot of ways, what's happening around the country, including Indiana, it's a lot more efficient than what happened in California because it's an overall program. Whereas in California, it took longer because they were brainwashing the teachers and academia, and then they brainwashed the students, and it's kind of a longer process. Here, they're just brainwashing all the kids at once because it's a program that blankets K through 12. This is why parents are going, what is going on? How is a school like this all of a sudden? Well, it's not all of a sudden. It was just a program that was inserted. Like in Indiana, we've been going on for about like 6 years now. And now we're seeing the negative impacts, the lower academics, things like that. In places like Illinois. So Illinois is interesting. It was your state was one of the original pilot schools for social emotional learning. So you guys have been doing it for 10 years. And in fact, I can tell you, we are about to put out something that gives you the statistics of the last 10 years of how social emotional learning and what is done to a pilot school like Chicago. Yeah, so that's what I saw. Yeah.
We want to share that with our moms too. So just real quick to the moms that are listening, we're kind of assuming that you know about social emotional learning, that you know about critical race theory, that you know about the comprehensive sex ed. All of this really is under critical theory. This is the movement that the progressives are putting in the schools. They are taking over children's minds. They're conditioning them. They're creating them to be racists. You're either an oppressed and oppressor. So I know that we don't have to go through all that with you, but just the whole program, I just want moms to understand the whole program is intense. It is intentional. It is packaged. It's packaged well for the average person to understand, right? Just talk a little bit about to that, and then we're going to get into some of the solutions.
The solutions, yeah. So here's the only thing I want an average person to understand. You don't need to get into the depth of it. Certainly you can. There's good information out there. And we have good information as well. But here's the only, if you're just an average person that don't want to get into all the acronyms, here's what it is. Social emotional learning is not a curriculum. It's a thought reform program. It changes the culture of the school.
Thought reform.
And the culture, and the culture of the school is America is systemically racist, and the systems need to be torn down. You either are oppressed or an oppressor, or you belong to certain intersectionality groups. So they can break you up by race, they can break you up by gender, or any other combination. That's it. That's the only thing you have to remember and know, that public schools today, under the social emotional learning, is a Trojan horse disguised as mental health programs. It's just a thought reform program that creates social justice warriors.
Yeah.
That's it. At the expense of academics. That's it. If you can remember that, if you can understand that is not a curriculum, it's not about a flag, it's not about a rainbow flag or a BLM fist in the classroom. Those are just little symptoms. The entire school culture. Okay. Now, this is how I explain to someone who has never heard any of these things.
Right. That's good.
I'll give you like literally a 1-minute example. Let's say that you and I, Deb, we opened a school. And you and I, our goal is to create master mathematicians. I mean, the best in the planet. That's our goal.
Okay.
Okay. When they graduate from high school, you and I said, we want to create great mathematicians. But we don't tell people that. We just go, hey, this is just a regular school, like any other school. But you and I go, I want to create mathematicians. Okay. So then everything from kindergarten to 12th grade, we talk about math. If it's math class, of course, we talk about math. But if it's English class, we read about mathematicians and their contribution. If it's sports, when you talk about basketball and passing and shooting, we talk about angles, like geometry. We have math clubs, geometry clubs, people that come speak to our schools, all mathematicians. The teachers that do professional training, all mathematicians.
Right.
Everything that we talk about is through the lens of trigonometry, geometry, math. Now, let's say some parents—
It's in the very fabric.
It's in the fabric. You know, in the classrooms are just posters of math equations and math quotes and all that stuff. So let's say if parents go—
websites to go to.
Websites, anything that we pull information from, books, is all about how great this mathematician is and how this mathematician died penniless and all that stuff, right? And then some parents go, hey, Deb, Alvin, you know what? You guys said that this is supposed to be a regular school, but it seems like that you guys are like really into math. And we're going, no, we're not. Look, in first grade, we're just teaching the basic numbers. 2 + 2 = 4. That's all we're teaching. That's all we're doing. And they go, okay, but look, our curriculum, we're just studying history. We're just studying social science. We're just studying, we go, yeah, but it feels like, no, it's just you guys, no, this is regular school. And then in 10 years time, everyone that graduates from our schools are just amazing mathematicians. And we're like, how did that happen? I don't know.
Right.
So now replace everything I just said. Instead of mathematician, replace that word with social justice.
Right.
That's what SEO is.
100%. It is woven into every fabric of our education system. So let's talk about courage as a habit. We now know the situation. And again, moms, go to our website, go to Courage as a Habit and look up their information. We're going to point you to this. We're going to point you to answers because this is happening in your school. It's just at what level. So tell us what the organization is. It is a solution-oriented organization that provides materials and ways to approach your school. So you're going to say it better than I am, but I'm thrilled to find you guys.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So nice of you to say that. The best way to describe courage as a habit is that we don't point out the problem, we do something about it. Or more accurately, we help you do something about it. So we don't say we fight for your kids. We don't say that. We help you fight for your kids.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we see a lot of great writing and podcasts and all these things where people point out the problem.
Right.
Right. But then at the end, everyone's left with, especially your average parent, all right, what do you want me to do about it?
Right.
And that's where we come in. We answer to what do you want me to do about it?
Right.
We know it's unrealistic for parents to take on, or any one group to take on these like large companies that are that are infecting the schools, because there are many of them, right? So instead, we try to give parents really small entry actions. I'll give you an example. One of the first thing that we release under Courage as a Habit is called the 10 questions every parent should ask. You can go to courageasahabit.org right now, download it. It's 10 questions for parents, but it's 10 questions every parent should ask. So here's how to use it. Real simple. For the parents who think it's not happening in my school, which I know you told that story earlier. If it's not happening in my school, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to say, maybe you're right. Why don't you go find out? And if you download the 10 questions every parent should ask, we actually teach you how to use those 10 questions. Now, the questions are written without acronyms. None of the stuff we touched upon right now.
Who are these 10 questions going to, though? Who are we asking these to?
So the parents will download it. And again, we walk you through who to ask and how to use it. But what we want the parents to do is to schedule a meeting with your child's principal or superintendent and pose a few of these questions to them. The questions are written in a way where it's very, very specific. It's not, are you teaching critical race theory? It's not, are you sexually indoctrinating my kids? Those kind of very general questions that a lot of parents ask sets up the schools to lie to you.
Right.
It sets up the schools to tell you what you want to hear. Then you put your head back down and they continue indoctrinating your kids. These questions are written in a way where that if they lie to you, it'll be very obvious they lie to you, because they have to answer in a word salad way. It's the cagey word salad answer that allows parents to go, why did you answer it like that? And that kind of helps them start to realize something's wrong in their schools.
Okay.
It happened. We've seen it every time. So then the parents go in, they're pretty confident this is not happening, but they ask a few questions, and then the principal or superintendent gives you this like cagey tap dancing word salad answer. And then the parents go, why'd you answer it like that? Why wasn't it just a no? And it starts our journey of going, hey, something's really wrong. And they start digging more. And that's how we get parents to realize something's wrong. Because we realized early on, you cannot tell a parent something's wrong in the school and have them act on it. They will want to not believe you. And even if they do believe you, they really won't take action. But we found that if a parent finds out for themselves something's wrong, they will fight all day long. And that's one of the tools.
So when their kids come home with the survey, or when they find out about the summer reading programs that have,
or a transgender closet, a transition closet that they're hiding.
Right. Or they find out that the schools are taking on messaging that is not appropriate. So how are some of the ways that the parents are being gaslighted on this, in this situation?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of gaslighting, one of the tools that we have there, it's called the woke gaslighting formula. You can download it at courageishabit.org. The way they gaslight the parents are a couple of things. They use the word just a lot. The just is a very important word to watch out for.
Just, J-U-S-T.
J-U-S-T.
Okay.
So you say, I'm a principal, and you say, hey, you guys are bringing social emotional learning. It seems like it's bringing a lot of really bad things. Deb, it's just about empathy. It's just about personal responsibility. It's just about, hey, critical race theory. That sounds like you're just making white kids feel bad. No, it's just about teaching real history. So oftentimes parents get gaslighted by the school and by the supporters of these things, where they say, prove it, show me evidence it's happening. That's gaslighting. They know it's happening. And then they waste parents' time. They get parents skirling around looking for evidence when they know it's happening. It's not that they don't think it's happening, they want it to happen. So the formula goes like this. It's just about insert something that doesn't sound controversial. What is the big deal? And then insert label. So Deb, it's just about teaching kids empathy. What's the big deal, you bigot?
Right. They're putting the parents they're putting them on their heels, but like, can't even believe you're coming in here to ask this discussion, because it's just about equality.
Just about equality, just about safety and belonging. It's just about making kids feel belong. What's your problem? You transphobe.
And of course, all of these terms and all of these things, all of us want kids to feel like they belong. All of us want a healthy education. We just don't want indoctrination. So it makes us all feel like we're homophobic, that we're racist, that we're unreasonable, that we're hate-filled. No, we just want to learn. We just want kids to get a decent education. We don't want them to be coming out with a whole new worldview because we sent them to school here.
That's right. So what I tell parents is this. They take advantage of your kindness by telling you how unkind you are. They take advantage of your kindness by telling you how unkind you are. 99% of parents, when they get hit with the, what's the matter, you racist, their gut reaction is to say exactly what you say. I'm not a racist. I just want, I think all kids should feel welcome. I know some kids may feel this way. If you start off by defending that label, you've already lost. Because you're giving, you're admitting that their label might even need a response.
So what would you say?
If I recommend to parents that when you get called that, pretend those words did not happen.
Okay.
Act as if whatever the question you pose to them and they come back with that, pretend they didn't say that and just go forward with your accusations and your message, right? So for example, I go, if I'm in school board or if I'm online, whatever the medium is, so I go, the transgender cult is brainwashing kids to the transgender, or the SEL is brainwashing kids towards a transgender cult. It's pornographic, it's inappropriate. It's just about blah, 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 Alvin. What's the matter, transphobe? I have a picture of genderqueer. Tell me, what are your thoughts on this picture in front of middle school kids?
And then they shut your mic off.
Then they shut your mic off. Or they have to make excuses to go, well, I think kids should, and I go, well, see, that's the point. Your point here, you really want this to happen. You
Mhm.
want kids to go under surgery. You cannot defend, you cannot even say, oh, that's disgusting. I would never, we shouldn't have 15-year-olds doing double mastectomies. I have never seen somebody who say it's just about empathy and protect, making kids feel safe. And then showing them like the videos that came out recently. Billboard Chris did a great job of exposing the Boston Children's Hospital, where they're talking about doing double mastectomies on 15-year-olds.
Right.
And then showing them a video like this and having one of those people go, oh, no, that's horrible. I would never support that. These people are monsters. I just want them to, it's about empathy and safety. I've never seen it. Not one time. In person, online, not one time. Every time someone does the gaslighting, if I show them a video or a book, they tap dance and they try to, well, maybe it's not real and I don't know. They never come out against it. So what I'm trying to teach parents is to put them on the defensive, expose what they really want to do.
Right.
If you let them hide behind it's just about empathy and protecting kids, you're always going to lose. That's not what they mean.
Right.
They want this stuff in front of kids. So you just gotta make them own that. Yeah. You gotta make them own that. And once they own that, then they've lost any offensive power, because how can you defend wanting that in front of kids? Yeah. So those are the tools. So the reason why we give these tools is that largely you can't ask parents to fight like this if they don't have confidence. So we just say, be confident, defend your kids. Courage is a habit. That's a great, it's a great name for an organization, but what does that really mean? So we break it down further. You can't have courage if you don't have confidence, but you can't have confidence unless you have competence. The only way to have competence is to have tools and an education where you can fire back at people when someone says this. You don't worry about the labels. You don't worry about the gaslighting. Right. Because you can't tell someone to have confidence if they don't know how to navigate those things. And that's what we do. Sure. So for example, one of the tools out there, we have a series on our site called the Decoder series. You can see it very easily. It's in red. The Decoder series is meant to do exactly what we're just talking about. Give parents competence. So the first one is decoding SEL language. Sounds really great. So what they say is not what they mean. Yeah. So we teach people how to translate the language. Perfect. Once you can translate the language, and mostly we're also trying to teach, these tools also teach parents how to think. Because once you see the blueprint, you can never unsee it. So this year they'll change the words. Maybe they won't use diversity so much. They'll use belonging. And next year they use another word. Repackage. Repackage. So we cannot keep trying to keep up with the language, right? Because it's an unending game. So while we do that, what we're mostly doing is teaching parents how to think through it, how to recognize it. So next year, when they repackage it, they'll just go, oh, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I'm not going to fall for it. Right. Last year it's just about real history. This year is about empathy and teaching, belonging. It doesn't matter. So if we can teach parents how to see the gaslighting and how to see the attack, then we're good, right? Because then parents will fight on their own. And that's what we want to do. We want to empower parents to fight on their own.
So this decode, tell us about that. So there is many subjects in that.
Okay.
So it's SEL, right?
So we focus on SEL first because that's the program that's bringing in all this. If you can knock SEL out of schools and end the programs and the surveys, one of the big things that we were doing this early for back to school was encouraging parents to opt out. We have an opt-out campaign on our website. It's called Opt-out Data Mining. We had our attorney draft up a form that parents can fill out on a computer and either email or print out and take it to schools.
By the way, they told at our school, they told my son that, and the parents that they were all optional.
What's that?
I don't know. The surveys.
It is optional, but most parents don't know about it, so the kids take it.
And the kids, by the way, when something goes into their email box from a teacher or is handed to them on their desk, and they say this is optional, most kids are going to just take it and be like, okay, what does optional mean? Does that really, what if I'm the only one being optional? I mean, it's just so weird.
It's all done in a way that that you get the most
intimidating, right?
Yeah. So we teach parents what the surveys are. The surveys are the bloodline to SEL. They take the answers that kids give and they manipulate the answers through the lens of a critical race theorist, or what they call an equity lens. Right. And so it doesn't matter how the children answer the questions. The solution's always the same: more SEL, more
Right.
representation,
Right.
more BLM clubs, more transgender clubs, more political, right? So, so that's the opt-out. If you look at the site on the left-hand side, that's the opt-out campaign, and we provide parents everything they need to opt out and why they should opt out.
Nice.
The right side has the decoder series, and so we do educate parents about how SEL sounds great, but what it really is, why it's a Trojan horse. One of the other decoder series, which is probably the most downloaded one so far, is we call it cult fiction. We call it cult
I want to
fiction.
talk about this. This is amazing.
It's a good one, right? We studied the 8 steps. My team studied the 8 steps that cults have generally used. Okay, 8 steps. And to recruitment, the cults that do 8 steps to recruitment. And we matched it to the 8 things, the 8 bigger things that SEL does for the transgender cult. So things like separation from family, love bombing, things like that, it's all done. Cults do that. So the transgender cult are not really inventing anything new. They're just using the tried and true recruitment tactics that cults use. And so we call it cult fiction. We break down the 8 steps that SEL uses. So parents should look at that and go, oh, my kid's like in step 2. Right. Or they're on step 1, or they're in step 6. You know, they'll recognize it because it is a cult. And so that's been probably the most downloaded, the last I checked, of their stuff we put out. So we try to take bits and pieces of things that confuse parents, misconceptions and myths, and try to break it up so that they can come back at somebody when someone goes, no, it's just about empathy. Right. No, you guys are, here's the 8 steps at a cult. We just implemented this and this, and it matches that. So then when you can talk like that, you're not intimidated because you know more than the person that's accusing you.
And moms, dads, whoever's listening here today, you'll be very impressed with, I don't know how many buttons you have on each side, but there must be 20 buttons or so with information and connections and links. I mean, you will be very educated with the resources that you can help combat this. Ask the right questions, get educated, understand what's happening and how to approach your school board, your teachers, and really make a difference in your community. Courage is a Habit is really, I can't wait to share this. And thank you for all that you're doing, Alvin. I mean, this is quite an undertaking. This is quite a calling.
It is. And I think for most of the people that are in this space that are doing great work, there's not a lot of us, but I know that they could be doing a lot of other things.
Right.
They really could with our skill set. But I look at it, my great grandfather, he had to run to another country. He moved from California. Not very dramatic, not that dramatic, but I look at it, if the entire country goes the way of California, and then it starts to go towards the Marxist, which is what SEL pushes, right? It's that Marxist ideology of the country needs to be rebuilt. Right. I guess the question is then, where's all the kids? Kids today that are, 10 years old, 15 years old, where are they going to go? Right. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? Because the last I checked,
what does America look like then?
Yeah, because the last I checked, nobody's escaping out of America on a boat to Cuba. Right. So there's nowhere else for kids to go. And so if we don't do something, then we have to be able to explain to our kids, we didn't want to fight because we didn't want to be called a label. Right. And so I always tell parents, like, if you're afraid to stand up right now because of your job or what somebody might say or call you, if you truly are afraid of that today, imagine what it's going to be like for your kids. Right. If they don't. Right. If we've got a bit of pressure on us for standing for truth, I can't even imagine what it's going to be for the next generation. Our hearts are sad about where America is going, but our hearts are hopeful because of organizations like Courage is a Habit and Moms for America. And there's so many good people out there that are fighting this fight. Yeah. And I do want to leave it with a positivity because I think it's there, there's a sad, it's kind of a sad reality in my space here that almost everything we put out is negative because there's so much to expose. Right. There's no way to make it positive because you're just exposing this stuff and it's by its very nature is negative. Right. Right. And so we often talk about what to stop and what not to do, but we never talk about where to go, what to do. And so what we want for education is to be what education was meant to be, a very fairly neutral. There's never, you're not 100% neutral, of course, right? Because you've got teachers, opinions, personalities. Of course, it's not an ideal, it's not a nirvana where it's neutral, but it's about pushing children towards a higher standard instead of a lower standard, which is what equity. So if you look at Asian kids always do much better than any other kids, no matter what social economic level. And the reason why that is because in the Asian culture, we always tell children, no matter where you come from, your parents could come here with literally nothing off a boat, but you're only one generation away from changing the destiny of your bloodline. So we just go, look, my parents are really poor. And so we tell them, hey, you're only one generation away. You don't have to wait 4 generations. You're only one generation away from having an infinitely different life than we did in 1 generation. And the key to that is a high quality education. That's your first key. And then hard work and taking responsibility for things that don't go your way. That's it. I mean, in the Asian culture, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we come up with. If we're not getting good grades, it's our fault. Not the teachers, not the system, not whatever. That's right. And so there's no such thing as, but Dad, I did study hard. It's like, well, then study harder then. There's always harder. There's always harder. Now, is that always true? Maybe, maybe not. But if you keep telling a child this over the course of their life, they're simply going to get better because they're always going to be, even on that small percentage of the time where it really wasn't their fault, the other 90% of the time when it was their fault, they could go hard, they can study harder, work harder. This is why when you look at statistics, no matter where you go, Asian kids always do better than everybody else. That's because. Now, look at it from the critical race theory aspect. When they tell the theory tells kids, if you're not successful, look 3 generations back.
Right. And who can you blame?
And who can you blame? So if you tell a child that, whether they be Black, white, or Asian, if you tell them through their whole life, if every time you're not successful, look back 3 generations, instead of look forward 1 generation to be successful, if you take those 2 kids under those 2 households and you follow them through their life, logically speaking, you know where each child is going to end up. There's no way about it. It's not about, this kid being smarter or this kid being smarter. If you tell a Black kid, every time you're not successful, look back 3 generations, that Black kid's going to be unsuccessful 100%. But if you tell him, hey, every time doesn't go your way, you look 1 generation ahead, and you're good. Then over time, he's going to be successful. This is why in the Asian culture, you have that, right? But so it's very difficult to not have it be negative, even though there's this is where I want people to go. I want parents to adopt that 1 generation concept.
Thank you.
That's where I want parents to go.
That's great. It's great. It's great advice.
It's not just about stopping this, don't do that, which is what we do a lot. We're guilty of it too. But what we want parents to go is teach until you're only 1 generation. Even if someone's fault, that's fault, maybe, you start off not with a great leg, fine, that's fine. You can acknowledge all those things, but they're only 1 generation. Like my father told us, if you can't succeed in America, you can't succeed anywhere. And that's where we want parents to go, right? It doesn't mean that you have to adopt the Asian culture exactly, but the concept of looking ahead instead of looking backwards, it can't hurt a child.
That's right.
And so that's where we want to go.
Right? When you look towards the future, there's always hope. That's how I feel like, because you never know
what's the future's coming. Not written.
Right. And you've got that chance to run into it, so there is hope.
But if you look back in the past, there's no hope because the past is already done. Right. So the
and
ending.
It's a memory, and the future is what we're gonna live. So
and I know that it feels very overwhelming for parents. I do know that because we feel that. And I get those days where I feel, the same thing. But I will say though, that 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, no one thought there was anything wrong with education. Literally, I mean, you couldn't get one person, it's very tiny minority. So in 2 years' time, even 1 year's time, I've seen such a change.
Yeah, we have
such a change. You have too, of course, in your what you do and the people you talk
to. Our moms,
right. So I know that for those of us who are fighting every day in it, it can feel like we're simply just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. It does feel that way on those days. But when I take a 30,000 foot step back, I go, geez, a year ago, I couldn't imagine the movements we would have compared to what we have today. So in that respect, And remember, this is people waking up despite the fact
Right.
that these systems are doing everything they can to tell you it's not happening.
Right. Right. And there has been an awakening with parents like we have never seen before. And,
Yeah.
so this is good because I don't know. I hate the fact that it's got to get to this point where things are so bad
Yeah.
and so blatant. I mean,
Before people, yeah.
Right. We have drag queens, it's at after school
I know.
programs. I mean, it is just completely out of
Oh.
hand. So, I mean, it has forced everybody to completely wake up and to completely be a part of the change. Either embrace it or change it. That's what we tell everybody. Okay, we don't like it. Next, we're going to fix it. And moms are doing all kinds of things. They're either homeschooling or they're going to their school board or they're running for school board or they're going to private education, getting a second job. They're doing whatever they got to do. And that's what we do as moms. That's what we do as dads.
That's right. Or share with other parents and wake them up, and so that they can do so. I think I don't want parents to have a doom and gloom outlook, because the change that I've seen comparatively to how much is against us to not change, it's been remarkable despite the gaslighting and despite the lies. So to me, it's not about necessarily how much further we got to go. It's about how much further we came in the last 2 years, especially, and even the last year, And so I want parents to go, listen, this is not hopeless. This is not what can we do about it? There's a lot you can do about it. And this is why when we release the tools, it's for the average parent to do something about it. We're not asking you to save your town or to save your city or save your state or even save your school. Just protect your own child. Just do that.
And when you protect your own child, you're really protecting other kids too. And you're helping you're making a difference. And this is why you're so, let's go ahead and mention your website again. Courageasahabit, is it .org?
.org, yeah.
Okay. And again, all of the information is available there from all of the, well, like you said, starting with social emotional learning, that really is the umbrella, and everything underneath it kind of runs, hand in hand with all of these programs. But thank you, Alvin. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you to your team. And moms, please go ahead and check out courageasahabit.org and get all of this information here so you can
Thank you. You were been so kind. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, God bless you and your family, Alvin. And thanks again. We do appreciate you.
Thanks, Deb.
All right. Before we close, I'd like to remind all of our moms that are listening to visit our website at momsforamerica.us to check out all of our amazing resources, events, and programs. Love to have you check out our signature program. I talk about this every week. It's called the Cottage Meetings. These 12 lessons will inspire and educate you about America's amazing heritage so you can share the principles of liberty in your home and in your community. We're just talking about the importance of understanding what makes America great and the blessings that we have in this amazing country. This program, along with many of our other programs, will help you impact your family and talk about these principles in a very powerful way. So we say this: from parental rights to public policy, Moms for America, we have it all. But before we go, I want to talk about restoring patriotism. We just released this campaign, which is actually part of our threefold mission, right? Our mission is to empower moms, promote liberty, and to raise patriots. So restoring patriotism is a campaign that we are doing nationwide. We are asking moms to restore patriotism in their home, right? The left progressive culture has decided that America is no longer great and that being a patriot is not respectable or honorable. But we know that if we do not raise patriotic children, America's future will cease to exist. And that's exactly what Alvin was talking about today. Think about his family, where they came from communist China, how they had to flee. We must be talking about America, what makes America great, and the blessings of our country, and the beauty of our Constitution. So on the heels of Alvin, I do want to remind everyone and tell everybody about the Patriot Pack. So this is something, so let me start over again real quick. You can go to our website and you can go to our page, Restoring Patriotism. On that is the video that talks about the program, the importance of raising patriots, and all of the resources that we have. How to raise patriots for moms, for kids, for families. Everything is there about how to raise patriots and make that a part of your family and your culture. And when you're, talking about your children, what makes America great. So the other thing is that you can order this custom Patriot Pack from Moms for America. To you, the podcasters, I'm going to give you 25% off. So they're not $24.99 for you, they're $20. The code is podcast in capital. So you go to our website, you put an order in at our store. It's Capital Podcast, and you can order these Patriot Packs for your kids and your grandkids. You order these, they come to the house. They get this great cinch sack. I'm mentioning that. I have to talk about this because some of the folks are listening. So it's a cool red cinch sack that says Patriot Pack. Inside the Patriot Pack is a flag. Love that. A t-shirt that says Patriotic Kid. So you get this t-shirt that says Patriotic Kid. It's a blue navy with white on it. There's a boys and a girls version. So we have those custom. And then we have this activity book. In this activity book, it's our custom. We did this especially for you. Inside it is, it's called a Patriotic Kid. Inside this activity book is all kinds of pages on what makes America great. Our anthem, patriotic word search, connect the dots, mazes, America the Great. All of these wonderful pieces in here you go through with your kids, and this helps them understand what makes America great and why it's so cool to be a patriot. At the end, we end with America's creed. Kids will have a great understanding of what makes America so amazing and so beautiful and so promising. We have crayons that go with this. We've got a youth constitution as well. Again, that's the Patriot Pack. Go to our website on Restoring Patriotism and get those for your kids and your grandkids. They show up at the door. You get to open them at your table, and it's really a blast. Have them go through that. Also, go ahead, sign up for our newsletter when you're on our website. That's how we connect with you and keep you educated and informed and engaged with all the things that we're doing here at Moms for America. Lastly, moms, we believe that you are the heartbeat of America. We love you. We want to help you in every way in your journey through motherhood. We believe that this movement is very powerful at Moms for America because we believe that moms are the ones that are going to go ahead and save our country. So like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends. We want to keep inspiring you every week and informing you every week. Thank you for joining us. Again, let's keep changing our world one home at a time. God bless you, mamas, and I'll see you next week.